Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek Podcast and interview round number 2 here at the Midwest Shed Owners Barbecue 2023. And I've got Carl sitting down with me, who I just met. So this is going to be a fun interview. I can tell already because everything I'm saying is going to be off guard. Carl, tell me a little bit about, introduce yourself, who you are, your company, and what you guys do.
I'm Carl Zeiset, and I build 4 Cumberland buildings. They're based out of Nashville, Tennessee. We're more of a production company. We don't do any finished out buildings. We kind of follow the Dirksen model. If anybody's familiar with Dirksen, that's pretty much the model that we follow.
I'd say most people are at this point. Pretty large company, pretty well known. So you're out of Nashville, but now you live in Missouri.
Yes, Memphis, Missouri.
Okay, so that's where you build.
That's correct.
Okay. So how did you get, what's your journey to the shed industry? How did you get started?
Well, I had a construction company. I had about 8 employees, and we were busy. And I had a fellow call me that said he had a friend in Bloomfield, Iowa, that was considering going into the shed industry, but he had backed out on him. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. I had a lot going. We were pouring concrete, and I had a lot of employees. And it went about a half year. He called again and said, we didn't find anybody. Would you like to talk numbers? And I said, I don't think so. I said, I'm happy where I'm at. And he said, I've got 3 guys that want to come talk to you. At least let them come talk. And they showed up. They flew into Kirksville, Missouri, showed up at my door, and through it all, I told my wife, I said, let's do it. I had 3 boys at the time. I have 4 now. And they were getting older, and I said, this is some way to get my family into it. Out in construction, we can't integrate children quite as easy, and the shop is within 400 feet of my house. So it's really family-oriented, and that's what pulled me into the industry, was for my family.
It's easy to work from home.
Correct.
You're not going to the job site all the time. When you've got young ones, it's not to mention they learn a trade. They kind of pick up things around the shop and start to follow along.
That's right.
A lot of them do. So now, how long ago was this? Has this been a while yet?
This was in 2019.
Okay.
When we started building was in March of 2019.
Very good.
And it kind of hit me a little bit. We started in 19, so we were gearing up. 20 was COVID. Mm-hmm. 21 was COVID. 22, they said, was normal, which I have no idea what normal is. And now we're following the model of 22 this year.
Okay. Yeah, very, very good point. That's those 2 years were they're blips on the radar for all of us to kind of try to make sense of.
Yeah, we had, I think we built about 300 barns in 19. In 20, we jumped up to maybe 500. In 21, we built 650 barns.
Wow.
And then last year we dropped back. So, you don't want to see a new business dropping back, but we don't have a realistic model to base it on.
Well, that's the thing. You started when it was up here, and then it's trying to find some level, level off somewhere. And sales are, I would say, probably depending on how you're structured, sales are typically a little bit of a struggle right now because the economy is doing some different things. So we're probably having to adjust to things like that. But did you do construction prior? You said you did concrete, but had you done new home construction or?
We did about anything. I didn't finish new homes. I did a lot of concrete work. I had about 300 feet of wall forms. So we did a lot of pits for hog barns, and then framed the hog barns. That was what we did. But then in the winter, when that slowed down, we did a lot of new construction.
Okay. But you would just get, just dry them in pretty much if you did new home or anything like that, would you?
Correct. So we did a lot of concrete work, and then we would frame them. We didn't do any interior finishing.
Yeah. So that kind of compliments you for what you're doing in the
absolutely.
Shed industry. That's something you could walk into.
That's right. And it was, I didn't know anything about the shed industry. I had no relation really that did it. I was clueless, but in some ways I think that helped me.
Man, that's a strong statement. You can learn the wrong ways too, growing up.
Yeah,
and then carry those.
I had no basis, so I went and toured a lot of different shops when I was going to build my shop. If I would have built in a shop, I would probably build that way. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you tend to head towards what you know. Well, I didn't know anything, so I toured shops, and that was actually a benefit.
That's a great. Oh, it's just a great soundbite. You began touring these shops because you were looking for resources.
Correct.
And you found them to be valuable. What else did you find to be valuable and helpful, like sort of on your journey? Now, I'm going to preface that by saying you primarily build. Do you do any sales?
Yes, I'm a dealer also.
Okay. So, like, what are some of the things that kind of helped you? What are resources that just on your journey there?
Sales. Of course, Cumberland was already an established business. So sales, they pretty much took on that. But what I found when I was going to build my shop, there is no model for a shop out there. I mean, there is 100 different ways to set up a shop. So that was primarily why I toured other business. The sales was kind of taken care of by Cumberland. They had the resources. They already had several hundred dealers out there. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't really a factor.
So interesting that you said like the shop model is so sort of fragmented.
It is.
What are the things that you found helpful that you said, hey, we want to incorporate that into what we're going to do?
There was a lot of different shops that I went to, and I picked them apart. So I didn't just get a model from any particular shop. For instance, I toured an old hickory shop in Wisconsin, and they had a really nice setup, but they had metal on all the interior, and it was just terrible loud. So, from that, I picked up, I don't want to build like that. And it was just lots of little things from a lot of different shops.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we have the perfect model, but it was definitely helped me down the road to go tour some shops before we built.
Yeah. Have you had any surprises that come along that you didn't expect?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
What are some of the things that surprised you the most?
Probably one of them was the cranes. I was in the hickory shop in Mayfield, Kentucky. We toured that shop, and they had the pole cranes. I went to several other shops, and they said, well, if you have enough people, don't even mess with them, especially in the size buildings you're doing. You're not doing anything real big. That was one thing. I probably didn't have any just real huge shockers as far as things we would have done different. One of the surprises, I guess, was the difference in builders is trying to set up how to set up the bay for a particular builder. It's amazing how different some people are in their process, their way of going about things.
Yeah. Do you have like several bays?
I do.
Yeah. So, and then you could hire those crews.
It's just one person per bay. And then we have a roofing bay.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's going to have their own system, and trying to like, mechanize that so that they know where their stuff is. We're having their jigs created already, reachable, and the lumber in a area that I worked for a large company, and they would take like this. It was a Japanese approach called Kaizen, and the whole idea was to minimize steps. And in a production setting, it was to try and like create like the minimum amount of steps, the minimum amount of effort, the maximum amount of potential to come out of that.
Absolutely.
Automation is like a conversation that kind of gets tossed around in the shed industry for manufacturing purposes. Do you do any of that? Do you see any of that being like coming online soon, or?
I do. The downside to going to like a factory base, when you're referring to like assembly line building.
Yeah.
We don't, because I'm a percentage. I pay on percentage, and my builders kind of come and go as they please. So, as long as they're keeping up with production, they don't have to be on there. If you switch the factory model, it's not quite as worker-friendly is kind of what I see. Maybe more efficient, but the workers like this model better, I think.
Introducing the Real Steel Bird's Mouth Notcher, the ultimate solution for shed builders, both large and small, seeking an efficient and safe way to put a bird's mouth notch in their truss. Our machine is designed to make your truss construction process easier and faster while ensuring the highest degree of accuracy and precision. At Real Steel, we understand that every shed builder has unique needs and requirements, and that's why we designed our bird's mouth notcher to be highly adjustable and customizable. It can easily accommodate angles from 15 to 45 degrees and can cut up to 1 5/8 inch deep, making it perfect for a wide range of truss configurations. Our bird's mouth notcher is powered by a 7.5 horsepower electric motor, which provides a smooth and reliable cutting experience every time. It can handle 2 boards at one time, and the boards are securely held in place by an air clamp, ensuring that your truss components stay in place while they are being notched. The cutting head features indexable knives, which means you can easily rotate the knives when they become dull, saving you both time and money in the long run. Safety is our top priority, which is why our bird's mouth notcher is equipped with a built-in dust hood that has a 4-inch port to collect sawdust, keeping your workspace clean and safe. Additionally, the angles are set by a hand crank, and we've included 2 battery-powered digital readouts that allow you to precisely measure the angle and depth of cut, so you can achieve the exact notch you need with ease. Contact us today at realsteel.com or call Darren at 570-713-0665. Real Steel, production machines for the wood industries. What's from the sales perspective, what are some of the things that's kind of surprised you? Like, you were in concrete and you were like, I don't know, we're kind of happy here. Has the transition been good to sheds?
It has. Sales for me aren't really top. I'm really in a rural setting. My shop is in a gravel road. I don't have real good road frontage. I do have somebody that does marketplace for me, which has been a huge help because of my location. And I don't know that I've really had any surprises in sales. I didn't know what to expect, and we're doing okay. Sales this year, I've stayed right in with last year. It's not softened up at all. I have a pretty steady word of mouth thing going.
Why do you think, like you were talking about the marketplace versus the rural brick and mortar setting? Why do you feel like that reaches people or helps? Is it just because of the way people choose to shop now?
Absolutely, that's where people are.
Yeah.
I really believe if you don't have a resource for marketplace, you're missing a huge resource, especially in our area. There might be other platforms that work, but I had tried several others, and it just never. There's just nothing like marketplace.
I use this term quite often. It's your digital storefront. I mean, you're trying to use that to reach as many people as you possibly can.
Absolutely.
Because that's the way shoppers are choosing to shop nowadays. It's interesting because we find ourselves sort of at a crossroads, it feels like sometimes in the shed industry, where, good salespeople who can set at a brick and mortar location and still connect with customers are very valuable and needed. Yet at the same time, some tech-minded people who can go out and get in front of more potential customers.
Right. We have some locations that are in excellent location, crossroads, huge traffic areas, and one of them doesn't have a computer for marketplace. They do no. It's just drive-ins. And we have another one that is off the main road. They're kind of in the center of town, not very good visibility, and she sells a ton of buildings and from her house on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
That is strictly where she sells her building.
Amazing, right? Like the difference, the kind of like I'm telling you, that crossroads, it feels very real. What do you feel like is coming in the shed industry in the 4 years now that you've been doing? What do you feel like is there like a lot of competition in your area? Do you feel like you can collaborate with those people even though they're competitors? Like, how can you work with them? Is all that stuff something that you desire?
I don't know. I do know quite a few of our competitors, and in our area, sheds aren't as huge as they are in some. The market is fairly open, so it's not cutthroat in our area.
Yeah,
I think there's plenty of room, and we're not out to beat anybody down. I
love it. Yeah. I just met you, and you don't know how much I appreciate that comment that you just made. So what brings you here today? We're at the Midwest Barbecue 2023 event with Cliff Knapp and Howie and the rest of the gang everybody here, but what brings you? What makes you say, I'm going to get in my vehicle, drive over there and see what this is about?
Well, when we started 4 years ago, my brother-in-law was driving for me, and we needed to go to Georgia to pick up a trailer. And we ended up going to Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, to the Shed Hauler Bash, and that really got me going. I saw the camaraderie among the shed haulers. Sam Byler, Jason Kaufman have really done a lot in the shed hauling industry, and I would like to see builders collaborate like that, but I don't think you will, because it's a little more maybe competition based. But I do see a lot of good in talking shop,
Yeah.
And that's why.
For sure. It seems like, more representation is always, a thought whenever it comes to, if it's building and it's making a better industry. If networking and coming together can happen. I think a lot of that happens at the Shed Expo, I think is a good example of people coming together. I know there's a large vendor model there and things like that, but I feel like a lot of people come together at events like that and kind of talk about shed building and what they're seeing and stuff like that. But you think like an event like this would go well for builders to come together?
I think it would, but I don't see it ever being to the place that the haulers are, because a lot of those, I would say the greater percentage of shed haulers are independents. They have their own business. They really don't have somebody to answer to besides themselves for what they say,
Yeah.
In the building industry, there's a lot more secrets out there. There's more things you just don't talk about, in a crowd.
No, that's a good point. I wonder who or how something like that could happen, because it seems like it would just be awesome. Maybe not to give away your trade secrets, but really to just build each other up as an industry, in general. And I agree with you. There are a lot of independent haulers. What approach have you guys taken? Sort of a vertical integration approach?
Well, it's funny you ask, because I just bought a truck 2 weeks ago. Nice. I'm the shed owner, and I hired a driver. I'm going to be putting my own rig on the road. We had 2 independent guys hauling for us, and the one guy's quitting here September the 10th, and I'm going to be putting my own truck on the road, so I guess I can be an official here now.
It sounds like vertical integration's on the map in many ways. So, where do you think the industry's going? Do you feel like it's going in a positive direction? You're excited that you're in it?
Yeah, I am. COVID has caused a ripple. In 2021, there was a lot of people jumped in. So, especially in our area, there has been probably 3 shops went up in the last 3 years, and a lot of that is because of the fake raise in production, and people said, hey, this is a good industry, and they jumped in. So I think that ripple effect is gonna ripple for a little bit. A year and a half ago or 2 years ago, equipment was rare, it was hard to find, and I'm noticing a lot more shed equipment on the market.
Yeah, it's a little bit more available now. And probably labor has been a little bit different. It's been affected. I know it seemed like we saw just a ton of, inventory leave. So people were trying to ramp up their production. But then as things started to come back down to normal, you have a surplus of people and building a lot of inventory. And now they're trying to find ways to get that off the shelf, which is where,
that's right.
The sales cycle is coming back into play now, because before you couldn't try to help people sell more sheds. They already had so many sold that they couldn't build enough.
That's right. And a lot of that was false. There was a lot of money getting thrown out there. The government was throwing huge amounts of money, and people had money to spend. And that pendulum is going to swing for a while. LP was up against in production. A lot of those, OSB for a while we couldn't get. It was up at $50 a sheet. And that was all false. Eventually, that's all caused by people going into the industry, and not all of those people are going to find a home, or a long-term home. So that's what I mean by the pendulum. That pendulum is going to swing for a while, I believe.
Hello, Shed Builder. Midco is celebrating its 15th year serving you, the Shed Builder, and we couldn't be more excited about serving you in 2023. What started as an opportunity to serve you with top quality steel and fiberglass doors has developed into an opportunity to serve you with many products. Midco offers pre-hung, slab, and overhead garage and roll-up doors, vinyl windows, aluminum shed and playhouse windows, several hardware items such as anchors, coil nails, T-hinges, drip edge, Z-bar, hurricane straps, T-handles, barrel bolts, D-handles, and louvered vents, and more. Plus, they have an accessory line of products like board and batten molded shutters, flower boxes, diamond plate ramps, and Mr. Cool mini splits. Thank you, Shed Builder, for 15 years of serving your shed brand. We look forward to 15 more. To receive information on these products and more, call 270-247-7447 or visit midcoproducts.com. Midco Building Products, trusted American craftsmanship. So what is the philosophy for Cumberland? It's Cumberland, right?
Correct.
What is sort of the philosophy for you guys? What approach are you taking at manufacturing moving forward over the next couple of years?
Well, for one thing, you have to meet demand and production, and that's what we tried to do, although COVID made that really hard. So we are trying to take a pretty slow approach, build the company not over 25%. You got to be really careful with that because you can overbuild. There's a lot of people have expanded their shops in the last 3 years that I believe are starting to regret it. Interest is high, and it's really hard to find production to fill your needs for the size facility. So we've tried to maybe tone down our rate a little bit, keep it to what it was prior to COVID.
Do you find that collaborating with other salespeople is helpful?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Have you found it possible?
Oh yeah. Maybe not outside our industry as much, but like I say, through the Cumberland, there's a ton of resources available for that. So that has been very helpful for me to be with a bigger company.
I did a speaking event recently where I was asked to speak on teamwork at a company picnic. And the one thing that I would take away from it is just how essential teamwork is whenever you have a company like Cumberland or any other company, for the dealers to get together and not only network in the industry, but network together. You can learn so much more by being open to finding out from others. What have you seen along the way that helps? I've often said that shed sellers are on an island by themselves a lot of times, and sales, unlike hauling and building, can be a very emotional process.
It can.
Yeah, you can lose a buyer, and you can think, man, I did everything wrong. But with the shed, from A to Z, what it's supposed to look like when it's finished.
That's right.
What approach do you guys take? What's sort of if a customer of yours was listening, what would you want them to know from your perspective at Cumberland? As
far as the building?
Yeah, the building, the quality, the process. If you're thinking about sales and a customer's walking up, what do you hope that they take away from that transaction?
For one thing is my personality. Your approach, what they think of as you as a person is huge. They have to like you. First of all, they have to like you. There's a lot of little things that go into that. Your dress, your manner, your office, As far as the building, I would say one of the things for sales, number one, is never bash your competition. Don't even mention your competition. People will respect you for that. And the other thing is, if you name a competitor, guess where they're going when they walk out your door if they didn't buy a shed.
That's right.
So be civil, be polite, and like I say, make them like you.
You think it's a long-term career move for you? I mean, to continue to expand into what it sounds like vertical integration, owning your own sales lot, building your own buildings. I mean, having your own trailer and truck. Seems like it's a strong industry to be continuing to venture into.
Cumberland has been very good. They have treated me very well. I'm very glad to be a part of them. And yeah, absolutely, it's long term. I own the shop. You know, they pay percentage for me to build for them. So obviously I have a lot invested. I have the sales lot, and now the truck is mine. I'm hiring a driver for it. So yeah, you know, with all those moves, it has to be a long-term investment.
Sounds like just a really good company to work for.
They are.
Yeah, and to work with. And to find that while you were already satisfied in what you were doing.
Well, there wasn't a risk. You know, I'm not buying any material. I have no risk in that. None of the buildings are mine. None of the materials are mine. The shop, they told me the percentage that I'm going to get paid. They told me basically the size of square foot I need, and they've done very well in keeping my shop moving. So that is all things you can pencil, you know. So a big factor of going with Cumberland was I can make a decent percentage, and I don't have the risk.
What are some things that you wish you'd have known 2 or 3 years ago, jumping into, that you can attribute now, maybe 3 or 4 years in, and be like, man, I really wish I'd have known this, because I would have went a different direction, or I would have doubled down on what I already did?
You know, I'm not sure how to answer that, because we actually got pretty fortunate on the size shop and our setup. I would have to think on that, because it's working pretty well. Yeah. We didn't make any huge mistakes, I guess, and that's a good thing.
No, that's really good. Where do you feel like the industry itself is going?
I think it's going to tone down. Like I say, that ripple effect from COVID is going to, some people that jumped in aren't going to be able to hold on. Interest rates have gone up. Production is definitely down from what it was. I guess I'm going to say watch your basis, you know.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a ripple effect for a while.
The shed industry is comprised of a diverse group of companies, but also a diverse group of shed sellers. Proven sales processes are the backbone of successful businesses, and their effectiveness cannot be overstated. At Shed U, our processes provide a structured framework that guides the shed sales professional through the various stages of the sales cycle, ensuring consistency and efficiency. By following a proven process, shed salespeople can better understand their customers' needs, build trust, and tailor their approach accordingly. Additionally, these processes are developed based on years of experience and extensive market research, incorporating best practices and strategies that have yielded positive results. Your Sheducation from Shed University will not only minimize guesswork, but also maximize the chances of closing deals and achieving sales targets. Our proven shed sales process will empower you or your shed sales team to work smarter, not harder, and lead to increased productivity, customer satisfaction, and business growth. It's time to take the guesswork out of your shed sales process. Invest in yourself and your team when you attend class at Shed University. Don't be tardy. Book your ticket now at sheduniversity.com for this year's session on January 23rd and 24th at the Knoxville Convention Center, just before the GSCB show. At Shed University, class is now in session.
I have been doing something different to generate conversation recently, and I know that me and you just met, so it's probably going to be a bit challenging, because normally I know the people that I interview. Like, if I don't know them very well, I know them at least a little bit, and we just got a chance to talk here today. So I'm going to give you a chance to turn the microphone around, which is what I've been doing a lot with different interviews here lately, and ask me questions. So you're sort of new to the industry, but you're sort of new to knowing about Shed Geek and what we do here. But I'll allow you to take the microphone and ask me questions. We've still got plenty of time here left, and I want to make sure and offer valuable, good information. So ask whatever question you've got, and then we'll see what conversation it exists or that comes out of that.
Sure. So how did Shed Geek start? Where was your beginning?
So initially began in purchasing. So I started with a larger organization, and I was doing purchasing. Eventually went into sales. Even got a truck and trailer and thought about building, and then ended up in sales management, which led sort of to RTO work. And I just kind of realized that, like, it's kind of hard knocking on doors because it's so competitive to knock on doors and always, try to get people to sign up, that you're trying to build. So the customer acquisition time's a lot longer. Customer comes in to buy a shed, you kind of know this is what they want now. If you're trying to sell them on like RTO services, you got to build relationship over years. Sometimes.
So you're talking investors. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. For me, I eventually got to the point to where I was like, the space I really like is just meeting and greeting and talking to these people and getting to interview them. I genuinely enjoy that.
So what is your approach as far as building trust? I mean, you really have to get people involved with you in order for people to trust you.
Yeah. Well, I think that people have to know your motives. For instance, since starting the podcast, we've launched a marketing campaign. There's other things in the works. There's just, how can I collaborate with people in the industry? If you collaborate with one company, does it make the other company mad? You kind of have to walk on eggshells. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
absolutely.
Sometimes you have to kind of be like, well, it's not a matter of questioning my loyalty. It's about how do you, leverage your opportunities to make a living.
Right.
So I try to be very transparent first and foremost. I believe that this is why I let people ask me questions on the podcast, because I'm like, I live very publicly. So I do like a trust check. You know what I mean? If what I'm saying behind the scenes in other words, if my audio doesn't match my video and what people are seeing and hearing are two different things, then I got a problem. But as long as I build that long-term customer acquisition trust and say, hey, if we do business in 3-4 years or whatever. I guess the best way I know how to answer that question is just kind of live transparent. I mean, we put everything on Facebook we're doing.
Sure.
Pretty much. I can tell you where I was this week. We were down at, Cabin Connections in Kentucky doing a talk with their company. Next thing you know, we're doing a podcast with Randy on Friday. Came here to Cliff's place on Saturday. Oh, wow. On Wednesday, I was supposed to be down in Glasgow, and that got canceled, but we're rescheduling that. And in 2 weeks, we'll be at the expo. So, I just live very, transparent and public.
And that's kind of funny you mentioned that, because you were asking me about sales, and that's important. People can pick up in a heartbeat if you're real or not.
Sure.
That's
I like to say everybody's got a built-in meter, and they can tell. And sometimes you get fooled, don't get me wrong, but the hardest question, for me, Carl, is there's people that you'll never do business with that are your friends.
Oh, absolutely.
That you're just going to like and trust. And there's genuinely people in this industry that I think a lot of, and we probably will never work together. And if it comes together, it'll be, God's timing or whatever that looks like. But, so I really think that just doing that, I think people want people to support. I think people by nature are generally good and they want to see people do well.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the only time it becomes conflict is if that person's doing well, it's costing them something.
Right. Yeah.
If all of a sudden you're doing well because it's hurting me. And that's whenever people get defensive and things like that. But
right.
The conversation for, this year from everybody I'm talking to is collaboration is key. How do we collaborate more to be better people, to serve our customers better, to serve the industry better? Where is our competition? The thing that I spoke on whenever I was in Kentucky, I'll just go ahead and give you my keynotes here from where I was talking was, I was in Kentucky in particular. So I pointed out that the richest person in Kentucky is actually there north of Lexington, and they're in the storage business. It was
really,
yeah, it was an heir to Public Storage, and Public Storage is one of the largest, if not the largest, self-storage facilities across the nation. They have I think it was 2,500 locations or something like that. My keynote to them was to talk to them really about how self-storage is, even though it's not really our competition, it's the closest thing we have to it, because what you're trying to do is take that 10 by 10 storage unit and put it up on a cardinal mule, load it on a trailer, and bring it to their backyard.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't have to go downtown to get all their stuff.
Right.
In which they're renting, and they never have a path to ownership, so they can't buy or they can't rent to own that space.
Sure.
So I mean, like, we're offering those opportunities. So we talked about that. We talked about networking or teamwork, and I kind of talked about how communication, I think, is the key to
Absolutely.
that. So you have dealers that you can learn and grow from rather than being worried that they take a sale away from you.
Well, there's some of that too.
Yeah.
A lot of my information comes from the reps.
Yeah.
That know the dealers. You got to be careful, what questions you ask, because even among a company, there can be competition in dealers, and the last thing you want to do is hurt that relationship. So it's like you said, it can be walking on eggshells. You have to be careful.
I think I do a lot of that, and the main way that I do it is transparency. Like, I'm actually probably a lot more shy than people realize. I grew up a lot more shyer than people would know. To see me in this get up, this
right.
outfit, you would not think that would be the case. But I really was, and for me, I got to the point to where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna throw caution to the wind, talk to people, build network. It's one of the things that whenever I first started selling, I learned a lot about my competition. I didn't bash them, but I learned a lot about them because I wanted to know what was possible. Like,
Absolutely.
Hello, shed sellers. Did you catch the latest Real Work Labs interview with George Converse? If not, don't miss this value-packed episode. Head to Shed Geeks Podcast YouTube and search Real Work Labs. George and the Real Work Labs crew are riding the wave of Google's latest updates, taking your digital presence to the next level. We're tech artisans crafting your neighborhood brand voice for shed sellers like you to stand out, gain trust, and get found online. Our software will easily capture your work snapshots, videos, weave your craft's story, and get reviews all in one virtual experience. Our innovation goes beyond getting found for your business location, rather getting found for your work locations. Reviews intertwine with their corresponding job sites. When potential customers seek local expertise, you're the proven solution they'll find. It's high time to map your reviews and showcase your beautiful work in a meaningful way that builds trust in customers' neighborhoods. Ready for the journey? Visit shedgeek.realworklabs.com or call George today at 480-787-7575. Real Work Labs, elevating your trust, increasing your conversions, and getting you found where you work in the neighborhoods you serve, one shed at a time.
So where has this led you as far as throwing caution to the wind?
It's always tricky. There's an old joke I like to tell sometimes about the young boy and the mule and the old man. I'm not going to tell the joke, but I would encourage anybody to go Google it. And basically, I'll give you the moral of that is that you can't make everyone happy. Because I'm attempting to always be everybody's friend or attempting to try to do business, and it can rub people the wrong way if you're working over here in this aspect, but then these guys feel like they're slighted because of that. So throwing caution to the wind, you have to be careful. I think it just, for me, it's been transparency.
Yeah, and it's funny you mention that because there is a time to stand too. When you say about everybody being your friend, there's definitely a time to hold your ground, and through that you can't anger people, but usually that anger is short-lived. When people realize why you took the stand that you did. But yeah, there is a time when you should hold your ground.
I've always heard people talk about righteous anger. Being angry and not sinning.
Oh, right.
So yeah, for me, it's just usually, I don't get angry, but try to explain myself the best that I
Right.
can. And I think as a dealer trying to do that, upscale that through like their networking process and internalized inside of their company, dealers who are trying to like climb the ladder and things like that. I think you do that by not putting down your fellow people,
Right. Exactly.
learning from them, trying to be the bigger person, walk away from the things that cause you grief and conflict and things like that. So I try to do my best to do those things, but I fail like everybody else.
Oh yeah, that's part of being human.
Yeah.
And when you can talk about those failures, that's what makes people realize you're human. That's not to be afraid to put yourself down when it's necessary, I guess.
The shed industry's been not just I'm glad we're having this conversation because I would never know how to bring it up otherwise. The shed industry's been more than me talking about marketing and sales and online sales and building and manufacturing and hauling, all that stuff, and going to all these events. It's been sort of a source of ministry for me, and for anybody who feels offended by me saying that, I apologize, but at the same time, I don't. It has really been, I've gotten to know some of the greatest people I've ever met in my life.
Oh, I believe that.
Me and my wife get to travel together, and that's just stellar. Like the fact that me and her can map out our routes and go out and talk to people and meet just some of the best people, spend
That's
time
awesome.
with them. It's kind of that sounds cheesy, but it's sort of a dream come true kind of thing,
Wow.
to get to go out and just meet all these different people. God has put really some of the most unique situations in our path. Connecting with the Amish community. I mean, to me, it's just as unusual not growing up in the Anabaptist community to be able to be in that world and be, I guess, sort of accepted.
Well, that's funny you mention that because I've noticed the shed industry. If you're going to know anything about the industry, you're going to learn to know the Baptist people because that is the basis.
Yeah. So it's when you get to go into someone's home and meet their family and eat with
Sure.
them and build community, finding out some of the things that are unfair characteristics that the world places on that community, and then getting to know them and being like, it's nothing of the sorts.
That can go two ways.
Sure.
I
Sure.
think that goes both ways there because I think, and I grew up in a Mennonite family. I'm Mennonite. And sometimes I think there is unrealistic, I'm not sure what word to use, but sometimes they don't include somebody that's not their own as quick.
I
and
understand.
that's why I'm saying that that's a
Well,
two-way
that's why
street
it makes me feel like so humbled whenever I do feel that inclusion. I might not be included at the level that you might see, but it still feels good to be, because somebody's afraid I'm going to ask like questions that are going to be offensive.
It could happen, but I would hope and I would pray to God that you don't feel that nobody in the Baptist community would make you feel excluded. I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah. No, for the most part, everybody's been really kind. And I think it's just growing up on this opposite side of the world. And then like God giving me this really cool opportunity. We have 500 call-ins from the Amish community. And I say the Amish, that's technically, maybe I should say the Anabaptist community.
Sure.
or whatever, but primitive communities that don't listen to the podcast on Google or get our newsletter or Buzzsprout or YouTube or stuff like that,
Right.
where we have, they call in and they can save their place on the landline. We have about 500 a week.
Really, and that's funny
color.
because I didn't even know about that.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's through a service that has really been really awesome for me to partner with and be able to provide that. And there are other podcasts that are, also go out through that service. So to actually even be a voice in that community, I feel like there's a responsibility for me to do the right things. And I'm always trying to make sure that I'm not sure if we're even talking about sheds now.
Well,
but, that's
welcome
okay.
to being a public figure.
Yeah, it takes me a little bit of time to get used to it, if I'm being honest with you. Like I said, I'm surprisingly more shy than what people would know and was even growing up. So in an attempt to try and even to try to work with those folks,
Right.
There's a barrier there. When we created our marketing company, we done it because I'm not saying that there are companies out there you can't trust. There's a lot of good companies that work in marketing in this industry that you can trust. But the one thing we noticed is a lot of builders wanted to be builders, and they don't want to be drug into the sales world and the marketing world and all this stuff. So it was like, well, maybe we can create a structure of trust where they might be willing to work with us, and it's a win-win situation for us all. So that was, so now I'm trying to navigate the eggshells, as we talked about, of how do I build trust with you and do business with you when our convictions in some cases are so different.
It's funny you mentioned that because what is a real conviction? When you have convictions in dress, that's not what you base your trust on somebody off of. When you say about being transparent, when I know somebody's transparent and they're letting me see the real them, as far as where you were born or what community you are, doesn't matter to me. When I can sense somebody is real, it doesn't matter what their background or their, maybe I should say their materialistic convictions don't really matter.
Well, there's this thing that keeps coming up, to me. I've heard a few people say this now in the industry. They'll say that's just business. That's just business, or that's just the way business is done.
Yeah.
And I struggle, Carl, with separating business from my relationship. For me, it's hard. Like, life is just life. I don't have business life, church life, work life, family life. I just have life.
Yeah.
And that's why
that.
Whenever people say, well, you shouldn't pray on the podcast or you shouldn't bring in politics or religion, I'm like, politics and religion are part of my world too.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
and one affects the other. It's a full circle for sure.
Yeah, I can't put Shannon Christian over here in this box, but then also Shannon Shed Guy over here in this box. So for me, I really struggle with the idea of separating my faith from my work. It has to be present in it.
Absolutely.
But then I don't want that to be salesy too. I don't want it to be like, oh, work with me because I love Jesus.
Right.
Like, I feel like that's very cheap.
It's a prop. It's a prop.
Yeah. So that's why I say, you're always trying to perfect the process to kind of be like, well, how do I build maximum amount of trust, give myself maximum amount of effort and opportunities, but then also not be offensive. So I don't know that we're talking about sheds here, but this has been a perfect episode for my mental health. I know that.
No, I love it. And I'm a drifting conversationalist. I need somebody to get me back to the basics because I can go off in left field pretty quick, but I enjoy it.
If you are shed hauling, if you're selling sheds and you're sitting in an office, and if you're manufacturing or swinging hammers or, whatever it is that you're doing, my thought is to always try to provide something that's educational and entertaining. So it's not always about us talking about the strict nuance of the shed industry. But sometimes it's just that, talking about our faith, talking about life, talking about family.
And some of the greatest points or mottos in my life can be used to every aspect, and when you talk about faith, you talk about things that can be integrated into shed building, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, same as shed sales, I can't help but name 10 people off the top of my head that talk about how their shed sales lot has become somewhat of a ministry. Whenever people show up to their lot,
absolutely.
They have an opportunity to witness. And even if they don't get into the depths of the gospel, they can be somebody's smile.
Absolutely.
When they show up onto the lot.
Absolutely.
And
that's kind of what I was referring to when I said be real. Don't be afraid to talk to the customer about what they want to talk about. You would be amazed at some of the conversations that have happened in my office that had nothing to do with shed sales, and the people ended up buying a shed because of that conversation.
Yeah.
People know when you're real,
That's
and
right.
people know when you care about them, not just about selling them a shed.
Man, that's great. That's the best soundbite that I think I've gotten in the last couple shows, and I know you didn't put that out there for that, but
I did not.
I just appreciate me and you haven't got to talk very much even before we sit down here today.
We
So to
didn't.
have this kind of discussion is kind of it's kind of cool. And you know, I've been thinking about, you know, the different people that I have on the show, and you know, even talking about the advertising, you know, that's the way in which we make our living. We're looking at trying to do some different things, and I guess I'll just do a soundbite for myself here, if you don't mind. I'll do a plug, but
That's fine.
one of the things that the hosting site has opened up is the ability to, like, I'll never charge for the show. The show's free. We always try to bring education, entertainment. It doesn't cost anything, but there are ways that that you can support the Shed Geek podcast if you so choose to, and you feel like you get value through your day or through your week, entertainment wise. There's monetary options where you can give through our hosting site, and I've really been struggling with bringing that out to do that. But then here I am talking to Cliff today, and you know, it ain't much, but I threw some money in the pot to be a sponsor, and I told him I want to do it again next year. Like, if people trust me with that and they get education or entertainment through their day and enjoyment through it, you know, if they give, we want to be able to give back, turn around and give back to things like Here Today, things like Martin Hostetler's down in, you know, Montezuma, Georgia, and Mervid Vargas out in Texas, and Travis Parks out in Oklahoma. And you know what I mean? Like, we want to give back to the community that's also given to you. So maybe watch for some of that stuff. I'll try to quit. I'll try to quit Carl apologizing for making money.
No, don't.
You know, and you know, as long as we do the right things with it and trust that God's being glorified and exalted through the process, then and not the people, then yeah, there's lots of opportunity in the shed industry yet. And I don't think we'll stop talking about politics or religion or whatever it is. So.
You know, and it's funny you mentioned that about the shed industry being a ministry. And I throw this out to all salespeople. Your first call is to be a minister. And if you sell a shed through being a minister, good for you.
That's right. That's right.
That's A1.
Well, I didn't know what to expect when we sit down here today. Normally I take a little bit of time and do some more questions. This went exactly as I think God would have planned for it to be. And I hope somebody who's driving around today hauling a shed or selling a shed or building a shed got some entertainment through listening to a couple guys talk.
Sure.
And I know I certainly appreciated it. So, yeah. Carl, if people want to know more about you, your company, how would they get a hold of you if they, you know, I don't know if you guys are expanding, if you're looking to do more or whatever, but if they just, you know, liked you and want to know you, how do they find you?
Well, I'm not on any social platforms. Email is a great way.
Lucky.
My email is carlz@nemr.net. Feel free to email me. I do have a website out there. It's just through my dealership, which is Timberline Portable Buildings. You can contact me through that. That's got my information on it. It's got my address, got my phone number. So check it out.
What did you get most out of coming over here today and coming to this like shed hauler event that they put together? What's something that you took away from today?
Well, for one thing, I mentioned the camaraderie. I really enjoyed talking shop with people, and I'm a people person. I love meeting people, new people. And Howie had mentioned something about the Telegram. There's a lot of people that I know through Telegram, but on a social platform, you don't get to know people. You have to come and you have to make eye contact. That's one of the main reasons that I come here, is to meet friends that I know are friends, but I don't know till I see them.
Yeah. I hope you're blessed by it. I know we had an excellent day. Like I said, we're fans of prayer and things like that here on the podcast. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. But anything else you want to share or anything else? Final thoughts?
There is one thing. When I started the construction business, that was back in 2010, I bought some tools off of a friend of mine that was going out of the business. And he said, Carl, one thing I want to tell you when you start, he said, don't think of the fellow laborers in the construction business as competition. He said, you're not going to make everybody in Northeast Missouri happy. work with them. Don't work against them. Work with them. They're all your helpers. They're all helping you in the industry. And I'd like to see the same thing in the shed industry. I think it's great to realize that you're helping each other. You're not out to beat anybody. You're out to help.
Man, what a great final thought. If you don't care, I'm going to just kind of say a prayer to close us out here.
That would be great.
Appreciate you. It's just a pleasure to meet you.
Good to meet you, Shannon.
Appreciate you being on the show. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity for this moment of fellowship, to sit down and talk and just have clarity and real, honest conversation. God, that's not just, agenda driven, that just sort of has you at the focus of remembering the gifts that you give us to do the things that we do and to keep you a sovereign God first in all that you do, and us mindful of our dependence on you and the opportunities you give us through things like the industry, and to help us be better communicators with each other, stewards of your word, just stewards of the time that you give us here to lift our brothers and sisters up and be real in those moments and not just use them as opportunities for business. Thank you for Cliff and Howie for putting this on today, and all the folks that traveled out like Carl. I pray that you'd give them safe travels on their way homes, and just, Lord, just shine on their business and the industry's business, and help us to keep you at the forefront of all that we do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Carl, appreciate it so much, man.
Hey, you're welcome.
A lot of fun.
My pleasure.